Okay, so the next thing we're gonna look at is we're just gonna have a look at how the stack is set up and architectured. So first of all, the this demo stack is what you will be turning into your application. Now it seems like there's a lot already here, but you can just make this all go away and start with basically a blank canvas, which I'll show you how to do in future videos. I'm gonna try to keep this video at a fairly high level, and I'm gonna resist going into depth on any of the subjects. I want this to be purely high level at the moment. So if you look at the project browser here and you look at the cards that are available here, these cards match the buttons, the navigation buttons. So when you click on one of these, it changes cards and goes to a different card. So let's drag this over here in the center so we can just look. So we are currently on the examples page that's here, and I want you to notice that each card has the same three groups: a shared background, a card content group, and a shared user interface group. So these two groups are shared among all the cards except for this resources card. I shouldn't have made that exception, but I did. And then sandwiched between these two is the card content, which is the group where all of the controls go. The controls that make up your dashboards and your interfaces. So the card content group, each one contains a content background, which you can hide or make visible. You can change the color, and also 4 pins that are used. Well, I'm not gonna get into what they do in this video, but they're just used to help with aligning stuff and resizing things correctly. But besides these 5 controls, the rest of the card content group is the actual controls that make up the interface of that card. So on this card, it just happens to be 5 buttons. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, wait. This is, let's just, so this is the header, this is the button, this is that button. So you can see the 5 elements, the 6 elements that are on this card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all visible here. So these buttons are actually groups. So you need to get used to that you don't reference these as life code buttons, you reference them as groups, because they contain the actual custom controls that make up the appearance of the button. So so each card is really has the same architecture. Let me show you some other ones, some other cards that are a little bit different. Like, for example, the data grids that you want to use, they are the only control that does not go into the card content. The grids need to be at the top level in order to take advantage of the accelerated rendering. So I took that into consideration as I designed the stack. So again, this info card has has different sections, and this section shows the real-time updates capabilities of the stack. But I want to point your attention to the grids. So there is one grid. Here's another grid. and a third grid which is empty at the moment. But these grids are all using the same one grid called Universal Grid. So this is one of the features of the AppStarter stack, is that you can work on one grid and create several different versions and unique grids out of that grid. But again, I'm not going to get into the details of that. I just want to point one more thing about the Universal Grid. And the Universal Grid only has one column in it, and that's called the Universal Column. So I will explain the details of this in a different video, but for now let's move on. So actually I'm going to, I can't click that for some reason. Okay, so these are some of the warts of the IDE that are gonna come through as I do this video. But for right now, I want to just continue talking about the architecture of the stack. So besides the cards that are on the AppStarter stack, on the main stack, there are some substacks. This stack is a code library that has some of the many functions that are used by the AppStarter stack. I didn't want to cram them all into the main stack, so I split them up into a secondary stack. There's the AppStarter palette, which is this developer palette, which helps to shorten the workload on some of the tasks that developers need to do to use the stack and its features. So I will demo that in a separate video. Then there is a code library stack, which only has the basic handlers that are all empty, and these are there so that these messages don't accidentally run on this stack. So these I guess block or capture the messages. I think that's what it's called. And then there's a word for it, and I forget what it is. They intercept the messages. That's right. So this is the first stack that you can use to insert your code for your application, so that you don't insert code in the other stacks, the stack libraries that have AppStarter stack code inside of it. You want to keep your code separate so that it's easier to find bugs, and it's easier to update the code base, and it's also it makes sense to keep them separate. Please keep them separate. So let's go back to, let's rearrange our UI windows. So let's go back to here. There is the data grid template, which all of you are familiar with. There's the live code library, which has some scripts that were taken from the tutorials, and I just thought I want to separate them so that the licensing doesn't get confused. This code is assumed to be open source, MIT license, whatever, because it comes from the tutorials that are on LiveCode's website. So this is just those handlers. And here is also a secret stack, which is used to put in code that you want to be able to password protect. So any API keys, any initiation scripts that you kind of want to hide better, and hide using a password, hide using encryption, put the code into this stack. And then there is the most important, well, they're all important, but this is the most important code library for developers, and especially new developers, to get the hang of. The stack is called Start Here, and in this stack is where you will begin customizing the App Starter stack for your application. So there's several handlers in here that do different things, and you are going to change some of these settings, some of these options to reflect your needs and to reflect what you are building with the App Starter stack. So these are all default settings that make up this appearance. You can change any aspect of this stack, literally any aspect of this stack, and the appearance, and you can make things look entirely different. And it all starts with editing the some of the options in this code library, and especially this set app starter stack defaults handler. So for example, I'll just give you one example. If you want the background to not be an image but just a graphic, you are going to change this to graphic, hit apply, and then refresh the stack with this top button here. And you will see that the image is gone and a graphic appears instead. This update takes a couple of seconds because it does a lot. So that's it. The image is gone, and this is now the background graphic. So you can go and change its color to be, blue if you want. So that's one example of how to change these settings. When you make multiple changes, you can, I would recommend actually doing one change at a time until you get comfortable with it, and resetting the stack to make sure that everything's working fine. So again, I can go through the details of this procedure in a different video, and I'm trying to keep it high level here. So I think this gives you a good idea of the architecture. And actually, one more thing I want to point out. These navigation buttons, I will show you how to make full navigation bars. But I do want to point out one thing. The name of these buttons, which are actually groups as well, LifeCode groups. So you need to get used to the idea of groups being buttons and not referencing them as buttons, but as groups inside your code. So these match the names of the cards. So if you have a navigation button that matches the name of a card, this button will automatically take you to that card. So that's one of the little time-saving features that are available in this stack. So in the next video, I think I'm going to show you more about the architecture of the stack, but also how it plays along with this developer palette that I've created. So see you in the next video.